I'm Harry Penner, lived in Virgil for quite a while, almost all of my life, and I'm probably going to stay here forever.
I'm Marlene Penner, and I'm married to Harry Penner, which has been for 60 years that we've been married. And I've lived in Virgil since I was 7 years old. Met my husband when I was 15, got married when I was 19, and been in Virgil ever since. He was one of the guys from Virgil, and I was one of the gang from Virgil. The guys would come around on Sunday to have zwieback, which is a Mennonite bun. And they sort of found out who had baked zwieback that weekend, and a coffee and a bit of jam, and that was good enough. My whole family, except myself, were born in the Ukraine and lived in the Ukraine. My dad was pulled into the army right at the end, but because he said he was not going to carry a gun, he was basically in the kitchen, and but he was not home when the German army came through. And at that point, the Mennonites were being persecuted in the Ukraine, and they said they would take them out if they wanted to. And so there was about 1,700 people that ended up in Germany. And my dad found us there, and I was born there. And then from there we went to South America. That's the only country that would take all these DPs, displaced people. The Russians, of course, wanted them back because all their good farmers were gone. And there was one couple that worked very hard to get them out, and we got to South America, to Paraguay. And we were there for 4 years. And so then we had relatives here in Virgil that were able to get us out. So,
what do you remember of all that?
What do I remember? How hot it was. We got there, and there was like in South America, it was a forest. That's all it was. You made your own bricks, and then you built your house. You know, you built a big hole through the dirt in there, and it went off into, well, they call it the camp. It was out into the what would you call that? It was like straw that grows about, you know, this high, and they would chop it off, and then they chopped it into tiny pieces and put it into the mud, poured some water on there. They had drilled a well because that's the only water they had. And so, yeah, then they would make these bricks. Yeah, we built up, and we lived there. When we came to Canada, we came with a suitcase each, and that was our possessions. Never asked for a cent from the government. Our relatives had a little shack that we were able to move into, and worked on the canning factory, my parents did, or on the farm where we were renting at the time, but it was good.
And you lived in the house where?
Well, first we started off in this little shack down at the corner of Lake Shore Road and East and West Line. It's gone now. And then we ended up moving to Niven Road, to Schmitz, and then we still stayed on Niven Road. We moved to Gertz, and then my parents were able to buy a house. I think that was in '57, that on Creek Road, and that's where we stayed up until they were into the Pleasant Manor.
So along the way you meet Harry. Now Harry, you were born in Virgil.
No, I was born in Kitchener-Waterloo.
Okay.
My parents, my great-grandfather came to Canada in 1921. He saw the handwriting on the wall about the 1930s in Ukraine. He came out of Ukraine. My dad probably was around 10 years old at that time.
What was his name?
Peter. That's him up there. And anyway, the whole Penner clan moved out of Ukraine and went out west. So my father and mother got married, in Saskatchewan, and then they realized that there really wasn't any much for them out there anyway. Then he left Saskatchewan after we'd been there for about 3 years, I think it was, and moved to Niagara-on-the-Lake, to Hunter Road, and he bought a 10-acre farm there. Hunter Road was an established road already, and you had the hunters living on that farm, and they had quite a bit of acreage there, and then there was quite a few smaller farms. And so he bought a 10-acre farm there. But he realized 10 acres wasn't enough to make a living. So that's how he got into the building business. He called himself Peter the Builder. And he started building homes around the Niagara area and in St. Catharines, on Geneva Street, and up in Glenridge Avenue. He built a few nice big houses there. He would go to Niagara-on-the-Lake. There was a lumberyard there. But every time he went there, it seemed like they didn't have what he wanted. And so he figured he would start his own lumberyard. Well, he started off with those buildings there. And like I said, the very first building didn't have the second floor, and it probably was 1/3 of the size of the down part.
Okay.
Then he added that as warehouse.
Well, and the store itself, his dad was busy with the lumber and doing that part of it. Meanwhile, his mother, well, they realized that they needed pots and pans, they needed paint, people were moving in, and these were things that she could look after, and she did. She was totally involved, and so was he. Let me tell this. When he was 8 years old, his job was to sit on the front steps, and his dad would be doing whatever he had to, loading lumber, whatever, in the back. Whenever a customer would pull onto the yard, he'd run to the back and tell his dad, there's a customer, and then they would serve him. His dad would go back to work, and he'd go and sit on the front step waiting for the next customer.
Yeah, that would be in that picture. I graduated out of school when I was 16. All my friends graduated out at 16. I ended up following them.
Why did you graduate? The teacher came and talked to him and talked to his dad and said, you know, Peter, I think you can do more with this boy than I can. So I think he should come into the business and leave the school system.
Anyway, my dad didn't have to talk me into the business. I gravitated in that direction. So after that, I thought I would work at it and I would grow the business. And it has. We were on about 2.5 acres of land at that stage there, where you see the brick building. And today we're on 16 acres of land. And just right now we have maybe a little bit more than what we need, but growth keeps happening. So you have to, and we're into engineered flooring, so it takes room to store the stuff. The Penner family has a heart problem. So grandfather passed away at 61, my father at 60, my brother at 63, and the doctor told me I got a strong heart, and here I am.
When he was 50 years old, he said to me one day, "Hun, you know, if you want to travel with me, we better start traveling, and we better do it soon." And I said, "Oh, sure, let's travel." And I said, why are we doing this soon? He said, "Because I'm going to die when I'm 60. The men all die in our family when we're 60, so if we want to travel together, we better do it." Let's go, baby, let's go.